Hello, this is the Chronosight Weekly Horoscope Forecast, Astrology with Real Stars. We'll begin our story for mid-January, from January 1st to the 15th, 2026. In January 2026, there are quite a lot of significant celestial structures distributed. This is because, as you can see, the Sun, Mars, Venus, and Mercury are all entering Capricorn in sequence. Mars, the slowest one, is at the front, followed by Venus and then Mercury. Eventually, as Venus and Mercury follow, they will meet Mars. Then Mercury will meet Mars again, and at the end of the month, Mercury will meet Venus. It goes on like this, but the problem is that this structure is in a combust state. They are also set to form oppositions in sequence with Jupiter, which is in the opposite sign of Cancer. So in a chain reaction, Mercury, Venus, and Mars form oppositions with Jupiter, and they also meet each other. Therefore, at least 6 to 9 celestial structures are derived. If you include the Sun, so in mid-January, or rather early January, these important structures are almost all clustered together. This is because around the time of Jupiter's AR, when Jupiter and the Sun are in opposition, Mercury, Venus, and Mars all form oppositions with Jupiter. So because everything gets caught up in this series of structures, other surrounding planetary and stellar structures are also drawn into this story I've just described. That is the story of Mercury, Venus, and Mars that occurs around the Sun-Jupiter opposition. They are influenced by it, so they are bound to proceed in a slightly different direction from their original meaning. So, for those who have important celestial structures or planets between about 15 and 22 degrees of the cardinal signs where these events occur, many incredible things will happen at this time. This is because at least one of the Sun, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, or Mercury is likely to be a Time Lord, which means you will eventually be involved. Well, this is a part that those who know the astrological timing method will be able to understand. Okay, so the first structure to come in is Mars. As Mars moves, it meets Nunki-Ascella at 12 to 13 degrees of Capricorn. Nunki and Ascella are almost attached with a 1-degree aspect, so when a planet meets them, you can consider it as meeting both at the same time. So this will be in effect from the afternoon of December 31st, 2025, to the afternoon of January 3rd. The Mars-Nunki combination is quite good. Mars doesn't have good compatibility with most stars, but Nunki is fundamentally a benefic star and it even embraces Mars. Therefore, the characteristic of the Nunki and Mars combination is a very gentlemanly negotiator. But negotiations are conducted in order to win, aren't they? You proceed to get something, but your words are gentle. In any case, it boasts a delicate eloquence. So intense negotiations can take place to get what you want with this gentle and delicate eloquence. And at this time, Ascella is also mobilized, creating what's called a game-changing card, a brilliant, decisive move. If you present something that turns everything around in one go, it's highly likely to work without causing you embarrassment. Anyway, that's the structure. And Venus, which follows right after Mars, comes 2 days later and meets the Nunki and Ascella that Mars had met. This will be in effect from the afternoon of January 3rd to the afternoon of the 5th. At this time, the meaning is very different from Mars. Well, it's a good period to gather and have fun with family, friends, and close ones, so it's a good time for gatherings. And also, it's a suitable day to be introduced to someone officially, not unofficially. It's a good time to be introduced to someone, not just a casual blind date from a friend, but a formal introduction through work, a matchmaking agency, or a real matchmaker, although that's not common these days. This is a suitable period for such activities. In about 2 days, Jupiter goes retrograde and meets Castor again. This happens on January 7th, and it's active from January 2nd to the 11th. During this time, you might try to solve problems in a way you normally wouldn't, which could lead to losses. Castor itself is actually closer to being a malefic star, and although in our era Castor is located in Cancer, where Jupiter gets its exaltation, the Jupiter-Castor combination has never been a very good one. What does that mean? It's when you don't check how things actually work. For example, in a lawsuit, you should meticulously research all the precedents and prepare a strategy. But instead you just go with your own thoughts, a naive belief that things will roughly turn out as you expect, that they'll just go your way. So, it's somewhat similar to a combust state. You don't listen to others, you don't look for information, you just do things your own way, stubbornly. But it's not even that you have a strong conviction. Castor is mentally weak, and in a way it's a star deeply related to conditions like schizophrenia. So it's deeply connected to a naive attitude of believing whatever you want to believe and the losses that can result from it. That's the Jupiter-Castor combination. And since Jupiter is currently retrograde, this effect can be even stronger. Now the next day, Venus finally catches up and forms a conjunction with Mars. This happens on January 8th, and the speeds of Venus and Mars are not that different right now. Therefore, it will be active for 17 days, from December 31st, 2025 to January 16th. Now, this Venus-Mars conjunction occurs in Capricorn, where Mars gets its exaltation, and they are both in the term of Venus. So, a reception is happening between them on different levels. But this reception is surprisingly solid. Or rather than solid, it's incredibly sticky. Completely sticky. You see, the first part of Capricorn is a beast. I mean, the first part is a land animal, but the last 15 degrees is... what is it? A fish? It's not a fish. It's closer to an animal that lives in water. It's not the goat we know. So it's the one that appears in Greek mythology, or is it Indian mythology? Makara, it's a beast called Makara. It's a mythical beast. So its legs are like a mermaid's, and its upper body is like a goat's. It's that kind of mythical animal. But in reality, in the Zodiac, Capricorn is also like that. So the latter half of Capricorn is very sticky. It's not dry. People often misunderstand that, but it's actually a very sticky degree. But in such a place, Venus is in its term and also meets its exaltation lord Mars, so it becomes an incredibly sticky combination, one of the stickiest among Venus-Mars conjunctions. So it's a suitable period for expressing somewhat secret and passionate emotions or impulses. However, you can't take responsibility for the consequences. Why? Because it's too sticky. But then again, Capricorn is Saturn's sign, so isn't it quiet? So this isn't about acting out publicly where everyone can see, but rather about things building up secretly and silently in a quiet place. If it's a business meeting, it's not held in the other party's conference room, but in a private room, salon, or some other secret location, like a hotel. It happens without others knowing. Now, the deal is done, but because it's so sticky and the reception is quite strong in its own way, there are significant byproducts left over, so the cost is high. A large bill, high fees, or if this is a romantic relationship, it could lead to an unwanted pregnancy. Things like that can happen. Yes, this Venus-Mars conjunction occurring in the term of Venus in Capricorn is quite probably among the 12 zodiac signs. The only thing that could surpass this would be a Venus-Mars conjunction in the term of Venus or Mars in Pisces. It's very sticky and tenacious. It's like being covered in mucus. You can think of it that way. That's the texture. Okay, and 2 days later, as Venus moves, it forms an opposition with Jupiter, as I mentioned earlier. So one after another, it forms an opposition with that retrograde Jupiter and moves on. Now, Jupiter is with the Sun, so anyway, the Sun-Jupiter opposition. So while Jupiter's acronychal rising is happening, these planets are following along, so they must also take responsibility. What does a Jupiter-Sun opposition mean? It's the time when Earth and Jupiter are closest to each other. That's exactly when things happen. So this is active from January 7th to the 12th. During this time, some conflicting structures between Venus and Jupiter can appear. So Venus, which is currently meeting with Mars, is a Venus that does whatever it wants, just causing trouble. It does things it shouldn't, and secretive things, well, things like that are usually far from ethics or norms, aren't they? Usually, these things are deeply related to entertainment or the culture of play. But Jupiter in Cancer is also retrograde. Now, this is related to conventional regulations. Somehow Cancer is a bit like family ethics. We have to protect our kids, it's that kind of feeling. So when this Venus in Capricorn and Jupiter in Cancer collide, the culture of play and conventional regulations clash. So for things like novels, games, dramas, and movies, there's a sense of, isn't that somehow harmful? This is rated R for our kids, isn't it? But still, isn't it harmful to kids? Why is it harmful to kids if it's rated R? Since kids find a way to watch it anyway, then we have to stop them from watching it. This kind of circular logic, these pointless arguments, arise. This leads to movements to censor fiction, to cut up fiction content, or a strong backlash against that. It's deeply related. So a conflict arises between the side that says don't do it, and the side that tries to do it anyway. And a compromise is hard to reach. Why? The planets in Capricorn are naturally in Jupiter's fall, so it becomes a rejection. They absolutely hate it. It's not just a matter of being uncomfortable, it's completely loathsome. It's like, I will absolutely never listen to what those old-timers say. Now, despite that, this Venus-Jupiter opposition has so many prolific structures around it that whatever you do, the matter gets bigger. Whatever you do, the scale of the numbers gets bigger. Therefore, no matter how high the expenses or costs are, the revenue will also grow just as much. You can think of it as a period where everything you see gets inflated. Just because it's an opposition doesn't mean things will shrink. You can't just look at this one Venus-Jupiter opposition by itself. You have to consider all the surrounding structures together. Now on the same day, almost simultaneously, Mars, while in conjunction with the Sun, forms an opposition with Jupiter. Look at the degrees. It's not even partial. It happens within almost 20 minutes of arc. This is a very powerful structure. I think it might be one of the most powerful structures to occur in the year 2026. Now, this happens on January 11th, and it's active from January 6th to the 14th. A kind of power struggle, a political fight to take the initiative can occur, and it will manifest very fiercely. Why? The difference in degrees is almost non-existent. Furthermore, the rejection is formed very strongly. Now, Mars gains exaltation in Capricorn and Jupiter gains exaltation in Cancer. So what does that mean? They are in each other's fall, so a mutual fall rejection is formed. There's absolutely no compromise. It's not about compromise, it's about gain. If I compromise with that jerk, I get something out of it. But despite the gain, they abandon it and refuse to compromise. Why? I hate it. It's disgusting and loathsome. So it creates a truly hopeless atmosphere. The ones caught in between will have a hard time. Mars and Jupiter are involved, and they form an opposition. The Sun, Venus, and Mercury, which are caught in the middle, are like a shrimp getting its back broken in a whale fight. It becomes very, very uncomfortable. So rules change radically and personnel actions are carried out comprehensively. This is what happens in places like companies. The organizational atmosphere will become very chaotic around this time. But later, when we weigh the pros and cons, it turns out the inner circle that held the existing priority will generally take a hit. Because Jupiter in Cancer, while in retrograde, has to cover all of those in Capricorn. It has to face all of them. It's outnumbered. It's pushed back by the numbers. Therefore, the Jupiter side is likely to take a hit. If we use a company as an analogy, what happens? The working level staff and the owner, they join forces with the CEO or a major shareholder to screw over the existing management, the board of directors. It can manifest in that way. So the existing directors, department heads, and managers are the ones who become at risk. However, the owner and the working level staff think, let's get rid of the old geezers and I'll take that position. These people have a high probability of winning later on, so it's a kind of permitted insubordination. You can see it that way. Now, in the midst of all this, Mercury has its own job to do. Mercury meets the Nunki-Ascella combination that Venus and Mars met earlier. So this structure is in effect from January 10th to the afternoon of the 11th. People who are rather gentle, neat, and intellectual, the elites who don't usually show off, high-ranking officials or those who don't really show off, how should I put it? Anyway, the leading class of society, kind of like those born with a gold or silver spoon, the kind of people who seem like they'd hang out in the Ivy League. When such people appear on broadcasts or YouTube and preach their opinions or knowledge, it gains immense popularity and they become famous. And also professional knowledge or the latest information. So it's not hearsay, but through the latest information from the real veterans of that industry, you can achieve higher than expected returns on any investment. So right now, Mars, Venus, the Sun, and Jupiter are explosively fighting, but Mercury alone seems to be walking a solitary, elegant path. But that doesn't last long either. Why? Because Mercury is moving very fast right now, next to the Sun. So in 2 days, Mercury catches up and forms an opposition with Jupiter. Not 2 days, but 4 days. After 4 days, it forms an opposition. This structure is in effect from January 12th to the 16th. Now, during this time, you have to sign an important contract, but one side is concerned about money. Mercury usually deals with money, and the other side's feelings are hurt. So it can be difficult to narrow the differences in opinion. You see, if both sides are unhappy about the same thing, money, then in a way the talks can go smoothly. You just have to find the gap in the middle. But one side has a money problem, and the other has an emotional problem. In this case, it's difficult to find a point of compromise, because their themes are different. The themes they are unhappy about are different. And right now there are these chaotic structures around, right? So things like people, goods, or money are moving around in large quantities, more than twice as actively as usual. But if a coverage suddenly occurs that exceeds the original capacity of that area, problems will eventually arise. Someone makes a mistake, or things start leaking out. In other words, a loss occurs, whether it's people or things. But at this time, while everyone is distracted, the one who discovers the leaking loss and gobbles it up can make a very large profit. This is one of the interesting aspects of this Mercury-Jupiter opposition, and as I mentioned earlier, the conventional argument of a stubborn person trying to logically refute the illogical argument of we've always done it this way and it's been fine can lead to a huge fight. It can turn into a much bigger fight than you'd expect, so the person who tried to refute it logically gets a bit flustered. Like, is this really something to get so angry about? Something like that. Now, on the same day, what is Neptune doing? Neptune is over there meeting with Scheat, a purely malefic star in the constellation Pegasus. This has been happening since before Neptune stationed direct, that is, since October 7th of last year, 2025, because it's stationary around Scheat. But on January 14th, Neptune, having turned direct, meets Scheat and then passes it. So it's in effect until February 4th. That's incredibly long, isn't it? How many months is that? It's a structure that is active for almost 4 months. So what is the semantic intersection between Neptune and Scheat? Addiction, drug abuse, anesthesia accidents, sinking, drowning, floods, heavy rain, landslides, typhoons, things like that, terrifying water-related disasters. These kinds of things can manifest very frequently and in a strong manner. So people who must take on risks related to these water disasters I've mentioned, I hope you will reconsider your plans once more. And this could occur as a sudden event on January 23rd, that's January 23rd Korean time, so you need to be careful. Alright, this concludes the Chronosight Weekly Horoscope Forecast for early January 2026 from January 1st to the 15th. Thank you.